Hi, my name is Anna Williams, and I will be explaining local, resting, and action potential. First, I will explain local potential. Here, I have an illustration of a neuron. When a dendrite is stimulated, here's the up-close vision of it, that sodium gates will open and sodium ions will diffuse into the ICF. This influx of cations disrupts the resting membrane potential, causing it to become more positive. Any shift in the membrane potential in a positive direction is called depolarization. The opening of the sodium gates and the diffusion of the sodium ions into the ICF at the site of the stimulation, causing neighboring sodium gates to open as well. If strong enough, the current can progress through the plasma membrane of the soma and possibly to the axon hillock. So traveling all this way. This kind of signal is the local potential. Local potentials have the following characteristics. They are graded, which means they vary in magnitude depending on the strength of the stimulus. The more stimulation that occurs, the more sodium channels will open and the more sodium ions will enter the ICF, depolarizing the membrane to a greater and greater degree. 2, they're decremental, which means that the current gets weaker and the farther away from the site the stimulation gets. So the signal may be strong here, but as it gets further and further away, it gets weaker and weaker. They're reversible, meaning that if stimulation stops, the membrane will return to its resting membrane potential. This is because the sodium gates will close again without stimulation, and the pumps can return to the sodium ions to the ECF. So to summarize, any shift in the membrane potential in a positive direction is called depolarization. The opening of the sodium gates and the diffusion of sodium ions into the ICF at the site of stimulation causes neighboring sodium gates to open as well. And if strong enough, this current can travel through the dendrite all the way to the soma and possibly the axon hillock region. This is local potential. When local potential from the dendrites is strong enough to pass along the soma's plasma membrane and reach the axon hillock, it causes an action potential, and that's what we'll talk about now. These illustrations show the changes that happen during the action potential process. In this picture, the plasma membrane is at rest and is polarized, meaning there is a charge differential across the membrane. The sodium and potassium gates are closed. The graph shows the current in the ICF, which is at negative 70 millivolts. That is the resting potential. Here's where the action potential event begins. The sodium gate has opened, and we see sodium ions diffusing through it from the ECF to the ICF. The potassium gates are starting to open. The graph shows the value of the current in the ICF, which is beginning to ascend from 70 millivolts to 30 plus 35 millivolts as the membrane depolarizes. The next illustration shows the sodium gate has closed. The potassium gate is fully open, and the potassium ions in the ICF diffuse through the gate to the ECF. This graph shows the ICF current is descending back to the negative values towards negative 70 as the membrane repolarizes. In the last illustration, the potassium gate closes. The membrane has achieved a polarized state again, and the resting membrane potential has been reestablished. The current has returned to negative 70 millivolts resting membrane potential. Some differences to note between action potentials and local potentials are that action potentials will occur at full strength or not at all. Action potentials maintain full strength regardless of distance. And action potentials cannot be stopped or reversed. I hope this helps learning this complicated process.